will be Alison McKibban. Her question is, should the U.S. actively leverage its relationship? That's the other panel.
Yeah.
How should Taiwan respond?
Yes. Sorry. How should Taiwan respond to South Korea's attempts to establish free trade agreements with China? David Thoreau once wisely espoused that marriage is a word better pronounced mirage. And while this may seem more applicable to the most recent cast of Desperate Housewives, it seems that international political relationships are in fact not all that much different. In fact, the International Herald Tribune highlights on March 27th of 2012 that the Asian relationships are becoming rather intermingled, pointing out that South Korea, North Korea, China, and Taiwan are all becoming mixed up once again, and that the relationship between South Korea and Taiwan, which has been a lasting marriage for decades, may just be ruined by the slimy mistress herself, China. Which leads us to the question at hand today. How should Taiwan respond to South Korea's attempts to establish free trade agreements with China? And fortunately, the answer is to be non-responsive, more specifically for three reasons. First, because this summer fling isn't likely to last long between China and South Korea. Second, because the United States will always be available for marital guidance. And finally, because China and South Korea, along with Taiwan, don't have mutually exclusive relationships. Initially, though, it is important to understand that the relationships between China and South Korea, well, right now look rather stable, aren't likely to bear fruit for a while in the future. An article published in Foreign Policy Online on May 2nd of 2012 explains that these free trade agreements, while likely to go through, aren't likely to last more than a few months because there's pressure on China's end, but also on South Korea's end. On the side of China, we can turn our attention to an article published in the New York Daily News on March 17th of 2012 that explains that relationships with South Korea won't likely increase, and this is because countries such as Iran and North Korea are breathing down China's back, telling them to stay eastward and support the policies that China always has within these countries. However, the relationship with South Korea and other countries is equally as complex. The United States and the European Union, according to the CSIS on May 1st of 2012, are not fond of the idea of free trade agreements taking place in the future with China, because they already feel that China's eastern influence is coming into South Korea a little too strong, taking away the Western influence that has always dominated this eastern country itself. The EU and the EU and the United States have long acknowledged that South Korea will have to accept part of China as a free trade country, but they don't think that the time is now or that it will help relations in any way. Beyond the fact that this relationship isn't likely to bloom much in the future, it seems that there's not much to worry about on Taiwan's end, as the United States is always there for marital guidance with this country. The United States is perhaps Taiwan's biggest fan, and an article published in the New York Times dated March 29th of 2012 emphasizes that the United States wants to have a relationship with Taiwan, and Taiwan is willing, of course, to have the United States as a back. The United States provides economic guidance all the time to Taiwan, signing contracts such as the one signed on March 2nd of 2012 Taiwan's largest trade partner currently. The World Factbook goes on to explain that beyond the United States, the European Union falls in second, saying that just last year, these two countries grossed more than 80% of Taiwan's trade. But for the United States, it's equally as appealing to maintain guidance of this country because they're provided with intel on China that only Taiwan could have. A foreign policy article published on April 17th of 2012 explains that the relationship of Taiwan geographically with China makes it incredibly special to the United States because they can spy on their long-lost enemy, meaning that the United States will always support Taiwan economically, while it is likely that Taiwan will always trade the United States for critical intelligence. Finally, today we can see that while this fling may not last long and that the United States should always be there, these relationships aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, China, Taiwan, and South Korea all will work together at the end of the day, even if there are some marital problems. More specifically, because South Korea will always maintain agreements with Taiwan. They want this Eastern influence to appeal to these countries. We can see this through an article published on the Washington Post on April 12th of 2012, which explains that South Korea will always be loyal to Taiwan because they want to appease their Western friends, but even more prominently because they want to have an edge on China. Kind of a, we'll see what happens if you mess with us, we'll just turn back. And this relationship then is very open and allows for much trade between the two countries. But even more is the fact that China and Taiwan are actually trading partners in themselves. The previously cited World Factbook explains that Taiwan's number 3 trade partner is China, and China's number 26 trade partner is Taiwan, trading 11.6% of Taiwan's GDP products every year. This is a substantial number that guarantees that all 3 countries may be mixed up in a relationship for a long time to come, proving that this healthy or unhealthy relationship is definitely something that will be seen in the future. So today, when we turn back to the question at hand, how should Taiwan respond to South Korea's attempts to establish free trade agreements with China? We can see the answer is they should be nonchalant and non-responsive, more specifically for 3 reasons. First, because this summer fling isn't likely to last very long. Second, because the United States can always provide marital guidance to Taiwan. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, because all 3 countries can have a mutually inclusive relationship. It seems that marriages are more often than not deceiving, and international relationships aren't much better. But in the case of these 3 countries, there will be some bumpy times for this relationship in the future, but working together, perhaps none of them have to be too suspicious of the mistress